session about the spotlight for China is going to take place in a few minutes. So let's give our speaker a little minute so they can put up the microphone. Thank you for your patience. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to GY Global Market Center. Today, I think my colleague Joyce already mentioned probably, and the sponsor for this session, that's the Coral Energy, the Australia investment fund, Macquarie. So this session supposed to take off at 12 o'clock. And the topic is about the spot market. And we've been through, in the past 3 days, we have so many topics going on. And today, we start focusing on the spot market. And the first market we're going to introduce today is China. I'm a Chinese, living in Copenhagen. As all you know from our global wind report, global offshore wind report, China absolutely the #1 market in the world in terms of new installation and also cumulative wind installation. And looking at the supply chain, China is also the largest market. By the end of 2021, we still identify more than 20 turbine OEM active in China. And we also see the Chinese turbine OEM continue to export turbine out of China to the international market. So having this opportunity today, we invited 4 speakers to join us for this session. So the agenda for this session is that first we are going to have one keynote speaker, Jenny Wang. She is based in London and from PwC UK office. She will give like a short presentation about the market status for China. After that, we are going to invite the 2 gentlemen. Both have the doctorate degree, much smarter than me. Join me today, and also Jenny on this stage to discuss a few questions about the global cooperation export of the Chinese turbine. So I hope you will get something out of this session. Now, please allow me to introduce Jenny Wang on board. Over to you.
Hi, thank you very much, and really glad to be here today to share with you all about the Chinese wind energy market and what it will play in Europe. Okay, can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. We'll start with the Chinese wind update. Next one, please. Right, in 2021, the single year that we had 47.5 gigawatt new installations in China, and of which 16.9 gigawatt is offshore wind. Largely that we have to thank for the change of the Chinese wind policy, but the policy that will give them a brief introduction about the background. In the May 2019, the Chinese government has decided that every project approved before 2019 has to be fully grid connected by the end of 2021 to get their FEED scheme subsidy. That is partly, actually the largest reason why we can see a very huge spike of installation during the year 2020 and 2021, which is called, right, very famous, the Golden Rush installation in the Chinese wind energy history. Right, looking forward, after the termination of the FEED scheme, what would be happening? Will the trend keep going like this in the future? According to the GWAX report, the latest update, Q2 2022, there is still averagely annual increase of the new capacity of 57.6 gigawatt per year in China in the next 5 years. Yeah, next slide, please. Right, okay, in the 2021, that in total, the accumulated installation is 26.4 gigawatt, of which it includes 97 wind farms and 5,237 turbines for offshore wind market only. And among that, the top province is actually the Jiangsu province with 11.8 gigawatt. Let's use a benchmark. We use the UK, who is the second largest installed offshore wind country globally after China, that by the end of 2021, there are only 11.3 gigawatt installed capacity. And Jiangsu province alone actually is more than that. And regarding to the turbine size, that in 2021, the average new turbine size is averagely 6 megawatt. But currently in the market, that 8 megawatt and 10 megawatt are more popular, and 13 megawatt is being produced in small scale. And probably soon we will see the 16 megawatt from Mingyang in the market. We will hear more later. Yeah, next slide, please. Right, why we have this growth, what is the advantage of the Chinese wind industry? That we can say China has a very complete supply chain, starting from the raw materials, and then including the turbine manufacturing and the component manufacturing. And China has deep water ports, which is convenient for the installation. And of course, we have a large workforce working in this industry to support all the labor work. Because of this, that we have picked up a few market share to give us a general idea about the market share, that for the towers, we have over 80% the market share globally, and over 60% for the blades, gearbox, and the generators. Last for the Chinese market, that let's have a quick summary, that in China, have the 30-60 decarbonization target that you will hear this quite often during the energy transition period, because China has committed to hit the emission by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. And now we are in the 14th five-year plan, which covers the period from 2020 to 2025, and we have the goal of 20% of non-fossil energy. And for the offshore wind alone, that we have a very huge target. By 2025, we got 6 gigawatt. 2030, 130 to 150 gigawatt. And by 2050, we are aiming for the 420 gigawatt. Actually, the figure is big, but it's actually still less than the GWAX forecast. And what is the current situation? In the first half of the year, we have 47 offshore wind projects under construction, with the 18.9 gigawatt capacities. And in the 8 months of this year that we have done the turbine tendering of 68 gigawatt with 12.7 gigawatt offshore wind. And for the floating offshore wind, that we have 1 operating and 1 under construction and 3 being developed. However, we are still facing some challenges for the Chinese wind energy market. First of all, that, as mentioned earlier, the FEED subsidy scheme has been terminated from this year. That alternatively, we have the province, the local government subsidy, instead of the centralized subsidy scheme. Now, we have several provinces have made the decision, and we are expect to see more in the near future. At the meanwhile, that we have to mention that we do experience high intensified competition in the Chinese wind market with the turbine manufacturers. Now, give a general idea about the current price there, that compared to the tier 1 OEM manufacturers in Europe, for the onshore wind, that the China market's price is only 1/3 for the onshore wind, and for the offshore wind is around half of the price here. Right now, come back to Europe. That is not very, right, I guess that all of us have seen this quite often recently, especially in the last few days here, about our change of the energy independency. So previously, for Europe, we focused on the sustainability and affordability. So everything is focused on the pricing. For example, all the bidding processes, including CBAT process and the government subsidy bidding process, that the price is the only element to decide the bidding result. So what happened? What is the lessons we learned? That because of this focus on the price only, that we have surpassed this pressure to the OEMs, and further on, they will give the cost pressure to the key component market. That is why we ended up here. Nowadays, it's very difficult for us to say, right, that Europe has a resilient supply chain, and that's a huge lesson that we got to learn. Right, and about the supply security, that we have heard quite a lot since this year, that everything is about the energy independence. However, in Europe, the only country which can deliver their own energy independence is Norway, not any other countries. So that is why, right, for the supply chain security, that we got a wider scope, not only the sufficient supply, but also the supply chain, the infrastructure, and the energy resources alternatively. And what is the situation now? As we can see in Europe, it's not very promising. That we don't really have the resilient supply chain. We have the poor infrastructure because long-term reliance on Russia's gas and other third-party resources. And we have currently very limited alternative sources. And as a result, that all the government, both the government and the industry has realized the problem, and the government has chosen to opt their energy policy to start with, and realize that we do need a huge investment to make it happen. So in this slide, we can see that in this year, recently, we have seen a huge uplift of the offshore wind targets across different European countries. And for the UK, we have the energy security policy, and we have the new Repower EU plan. And what we hear more in the market now, we have the voice of Made in Europe. However, to be honest, to be realistic, when we talk about these targets, it's not only about the capacity, it's actually also about the politics. So what happened now that we have the targets here, but how we are going to deliver them, how we are going to implement them, this big challenge has been left to the industry and to all of us here. Right, in such situation, how we are going to work together to achieve the win-win situation between the European wind energy market and the Chinese market. Luckily, we work in the renewable sector, not in the semiconductor industry, so we share the congruent goals, including the sustainability, including the cost efficiency, and the technology R&D. Of course, we also face the challenges. Some of these challenges we can see, some of them are generic due to the nature of the renewables, and some of them are geological related, and some of them are hopefully temporarily because of the COVID, such as supply chain disruption. But some of these challenges are actually created by person on purpose. So how we are going to do that, and how we know we do trust for each of these challenges, we do have solutions. However, no solutions can be done or delivered independently. So we have to be working together to make it happen. Right here in this page, we just list some examples about how we are going to collaborate to tackle those challenges. So for the PwC, we see quite a lot of clients in different territories that we see a surplus production in China who would like to send their products abroad. And we also see some Western developers who would like to have a resilient supply chain. So for us, that we are trying to leverage our resources to build up a bridge, to close the gap, and hopefully that we can make it by setting up an established platform of the supply chain. And for our Chinese manufacturers, OEMs, that we do have the biggest problem is no track record. This is always the most difficult part is always the first step. Now, what we need to do that, whether the Western developers could provide some opportunities for them to set up their demonstration project and then achieve the bankability locally gradually. And when we come back to the Western developers, what they concern the most is actually the supply chain, whether it can last, whether it can be sustainable. And in that case, whether we can make any local experts available for them to check the quality procedures, and whether we can communicate better to support this cultural gap barrier. Right, and the last is the technology that we do not have the global unified technology, and currently we don't really have any global investment for the R&D, which can be open to every territory developers or the asset owners. Right, so all these actually are some samples, and I'm quite happy to discuss with you later to say what could we do, what could we help. And last that I would like to use the PwC's vision statement to close my speech. Right, our purpose is actually to build trust in society and solve important problems for our clients. And really hope that we can offer some help. And thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for your very comprehensive introduction about the Chinese market and also the opportunity or challenge facing the European here. We're still in the middle of the crisis. So now let's welcome the panelists go to the stage. Joining us today, the first panelist, that's Dr. Cheng Wei, based here in Germany, Hamburg. He's the General Manager for Mingyang Smart Energy European Division. Welcome. The second speaker is also Dr. Guo Xiaoming. He's the President of Shanyi Renewable Energy onshore project. Welcome. And I also would like to welcome Jenny to join us again on this floor and participate the panel discussion. Before we start, I think many of you are aware of that, Mingyang and Shanyi, but still, I guess, in order to make sure that everyone understood who they are, before we start the conversation, I just want to give 1 minute quick introduction for each of the turbine OEM. Let's start with Dr. Cheng Wei.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm from Mingyang Smart Energy. So Mingyang is one of the top wind turbine OEM globally. So we are ranked as top 6 wind turbine OEM globally and top 3 in China. And we have our headquarters in south of China called Zhongshan. And started with 2006, Mingyang has entered in the wind business. And from then, now we have around 15,000 employees. And last year, we have installed capacity of wind around 80 gigawatt. And half of them, around 4 gigawatt, is offshore. Yeah? So we have installed actually one of the biggest portion of the offshore installation for last year. And Mingyang is also actually the earliest wind turbine OEM which introduced a large size of offshore turbine first in China market. And globally now we have, now I'm based in Hamburg here, actually right here. So we have offices in Hamburg. So I personally already live in Hamburg for more than 10 years. And the Mingyang office in Hamburg was established 3 years before. And now we have also office in Copenhagen, and we're going to also have office in UK and Italy. So by the way, in Italy, we have just commissioned our first offshore park in Europe. It's a small size 30 megawatt project with 10 units of our 3 megawatt offshore turbine in Italy, which is also the first offshore park in Italy. Yeah. And also in America, we have also office in New York, and especially now in Brazil, we are quite active. So we have also offices in Sao Paulo, and of course in Asia, we have a relatively big offices in Vietnam and South Korea. Yeah. Okay. So.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cheng Wei. Mr. Guo.
Yeah.
Could you give us a short introduction about Shanyi? I guess Shanyi is not a really new brand here in Europe because you already have the setup in terms of the crane business, etc. Now over to you.
Yeah. This is Xiaoming. I come from Shanyi Renewable Energy, the daughter company from the Shanyi Group. You might already heard about the Shanyi Group from the turbine construction machine, the cranes, and the construction machineries, all kinds of things. And currently, Shanyi Renewable Energy is the top 5 manufacturer in the China onshore market. So we also have a office in Madrid. So this is our research and invention centers. So yeah, you are welcome to visit us. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Thank you, Xiaoming. So now we basically understand who they are. But before I start, just want to quickly mention, according to GY Global Supply Side Data Report, Mingyang, it's the number 3 supplier in China, and the SANY is number 5.
Top 5 in onshore.
Yeah, top 5 on onshore.
Yeah.
And at this moment, SANY mainly focus on onshore, but from what I understand, they have the offshore under development at this stage.
It's on
Mingyang, yeah, both onshore and offshore already with the turbine export across the global. So again, based on the slide Jenny presented earlier today, we all know China is the largest market, not just in terms of the past or the history. If we're looking at the growth in the next 5 or 10 years, our global 2022 Q1 outlook, that's the numbers Jenny quote from our annual report, and we believe that in China, the average growth rate in terms of new installation are going to continue. We had passed the 50 gigawatt for the world first time in 2020. Last year, almost 50 gigawatt, but this is mainly based on grid connection. If we're looking at actually turbine nacelle installation, it's also more than 50 gigawatt. And for the next 5 years, on average, nearly 60 gigawatt. But do we believe that the market is big enough for Chinese turbine OEM? Is there any appetite for them to going out? I believe so, because if we're looking at the turbine price, probably some of you saw the report by Recharge or Wind Power Monthly or any other media. There is a big competition in China. We have, as I mentioned earlier, in China, we still have more than 20 turbine OEM active in the market. They are compete head-to-head. You all heard about the price or what's the latest numbers based on the cost comparison. The price in the end of 2020 compared with the price in Q3 right now, I think the onshore price in China already dropped by like 31%. So 1/4 of price drop, that's significantly. And imagine that's the situation, in China. At the same time, in Europe, we have the Western turbine OEM, probably you heard from their press release, they continuously increase the turbine price. So again, looking at the export in China, according to Sevilla, the Chinese Wind Energy Association, our data, and also GWAC, the Chinese turbine export numbers, total export, passed the 1 gigawatt milestone in 2015. Last year, in 2021, due to the installation rush in Vietnam, and we record, that's the basic record for the Chinese turbine OEM, more than 3.5 gigawatt export into the global market. Without thinking about Vietnam, we still have more than 1.5 gigawatt export in different parts of the world, including Mingyang and also offshore in Vietnam as well. So again, we have a big market in China, but we also have a big competition. The price will drive crazy. From the latest information, financial report, quarterly report from Goldwyn, we can see the sales revenue went up, but at the same time, the profit drops. So we can see the challenge. But here is my first question. Due to the crucial competition based on the turbine price on Chinese turbine OEM, they're fighting at home. Do you think this will speed up the export of the Chinese turbine OEM to the European market? So let's start with Dr. Chen Wei.
Yes. So the situation in China is quite heavy, as just mentioned. So compared with last year, the price level has been dropped dramatically, and that gives all the OEMs, also in China, all the OEMs really heavy, big pressure of the costs, and also in terms of the profit and so on, and certainly a kind of way to also to improve the situation is, of course, looking into the overseas market. That definitely will motivate, I think, my view is that will definitely motivate more and more OEMs from China to, at first, look into the offshore, and then, of course, as a second step, try to export the turbines in the overseas market. Probably started with the market near China, like the Vietnam, and also in the Southeast Asia, also in the Middle Asia, which is actively happening, and also in certain markets like in South America, that's also quite active there. And slowly also, we are, like Mingyang, we are also looking into the Europe, since Europe has also very higher target of the wind installation till 2050. So we are also looking to the 700 of a gigawatt expected also to install only offshore in Europe. So this is also a very big portion of the global market we are having also in Europe. So that's why we are also looking to that. Definitely, I think the situation in China and also the dramatic drop of price will motivate. And on the other hand, I think the global market probably also could benefit of the supply situations in China because it's a heavy competition, and it's also due to the amount, the volume per year which China installed. From now on, it's average more than 50 or even 60 gigawatt. That we are continuously, let's see, to reduce the cost of the whole supply chain, not only the turbine, but all the components. So which could also benefit the overall global wind energy development. So I think I see this in both ways. On one side, we want to look outside, and on the other side is also opportunities for the global market to benefit from the China supply chain.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chen. Mr. Guo, how do you see the challenging situation in China and the impact on your global strategy? We all know SANY is like a black horse in the past 3 years in the Chinese market. It's one of the turbine OEM offers the lowest price. And in terms of competitiveness, I can see you are gaining the market share in China. But again, as I said, due to the lower price, the margin is low. Do you think that also could be a reason for SANY to considering going to Hamburg Wind Energy for the very first time, looking for a global expansion?
Yeah, I think we have used too many words of the competition. So I have reserved my opinion about this competition descriptions. Actually, SANY is not the lowest price in China market now, and there are lots of manufacturing, they have an even lower price. So from our point of view, in each business, you have competition, you have corporations. I think in the wind business is also the same. And there's one index that can indicate the competition tensions in this business. So it's gross profit margins in this market. And there's a lot of wind industry company in China. They are listed company. SANY is one of them, and you can directly check their financial report every year, and the profit margin it's something you can check directly. Normally, we define wind industry is a renewable industry, and also wind industry is also a manufacturing industry. In a manufacturing industry, the profit margin could be 10% to 20%. Some of the best of them can make 20% to 30%. And so from my point of view, their financial report still looks healthy, and the profit margin looks like still okay for them. And so I believe in free market. I think in the end, the market will curb the competition tension in this industry. So that's what we think. So except for the competition, I would like to focus more on corporations. Yeah, cooperation is so important. Yeah, I even made a few notes here. So the cooperation itself, I think from the first day one, the Chinese wind industry start, and we now still very respect and very humbly learning all the advanced new ideas, new concept from this natural market, and we continuously improve our technology, supply chain, and also the building, the construction, and also the service and the operations. So in that way, we are keep on making progress, and we also keep on benchmark them with the advanced market, high international standard currently. So that's a kind of, we are looking outside, we are keep on looking. And in other words, and the Chinese market itself is have abundant wind resource to meet our huge need for the sustainable energy. The market is bigger enough in China. So the wind industry have been accelerate its growth very rapidly, especially in the last 5 years. And I think this will bring a lot there's a lot of cooperations in the last 5 years between the wind resource developer, between the OEM, between the suppliers. Together, we think we have reached an optimized system. The system have this unique advantage in China market. That's something like technologies, manufacturing, and also the logistics system.
Yeah, so you believe that it's not just the price, competitiveness, and which can help you to enter the new market, and you also believe that over the year, in the past
the price
15,
itself,
20 years,
yeah.
The local technology, local supply chain has become mature. It's also give you the advantage.
Also the advantage.
Yeah.
This is some kind of advantage we have, but we believe in other world market, they have their own, also have their own unique advantages, different kind of advantages.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So, Jenny, working at PwC, I know you're working across the global, also with the Chinese component supplier. There is a severe competition based on the price. I guess the margin is also low for the Chinese component manufacturer, like gearbox generator and converter. For example, at this show, we have the Chinese CRRC Yongji. It's one of the GWAC board members as well, by the way. And we have He Wang, producer for power converter. They all are here in Hamburg at this show. I think we can see, do you believe that, the lower margin or competition is also a driver for the Chinese component manufacturer to go aboard? How do you see it?
Right, actually, we have seen quite a lot of such scenarios that we do have a lot of Chinese clients who would like to set their footprint abroad to expand their production. As I mentioned earlier, that we have experienced the golden rush in 2020 and 2021. During the period, a lot of new players has entered the market, and a lot of, it's no doubt with more supply that we are experiencing the cost reduction. To certain extent, it is a good, healthy signal to the market because it can help the developers, help the OEMs. However, yes, as you mentioned earlier, that we do have to be cautious about the margin. However, currently we have identified that the component manufacturers, their expansion to abroad are largely driven by their existing customers. Considering the size, they are not probably as big as our big OEM, the manufacturers, so they have limited resources to do an organic growth abroad. That is why they have to choose the most priority ones to start with. Actually, it is a good sign, right? It's good for the whole market, and if we just considering at the moment that we do have 5 biggest OEMs here in Europe, but none of them are making profit. We do need some new fresh, and not only about this, because they don't have the profit margin, they won't really do extra investment to expand their production. So in the long run, the supply chain problem will be getting worse, and we got a fantastic, bright future of the figures of the targets. But considering if we can't deliver that, it doesn't make sense, right? So we do need some fresh blood to encourage the market and to create a healthy development, macro environment of the country.
So you believe that the European supply chain, in terms of turbine OEM, they need to think about the cooperation with the Chinese component supplier to try to get the benefit from the maturity of the local supply chain in China, right?
Yes.
So, again, thank you. So, we're running out of time. My next question I'm going to quickly raise up. That's about, we probably both Mingyang and Sanyi, they already export turbine in different markets. And Sanyi mainly for onshore United States, also in Ethiopia or somewhere else. In Mingyang, also US, Vietnam, and also Japan offshore, Italy, Dr. Chen already mentioned for fixed bottom project. And most recently in Scotland or England or Scotland, that's the floating foundation. I think that's the first Chinese turbine OEM enter the European floating market. I think it's absolutely a milestone for the Chinese turbine OEM. But to get there, I guess Mingyang and Sanyi has been working for more than a decade. And what's the challenge you faced over the years? And how do you see what you learn, based on what you learn, and how you are going to address those kind of challenges? Let's start with Dr. Chen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We have recently successfully secured one pre-commercial floating project in UK, so which would be, let's say, kind of our milestones on hand in Europe, in the floating areas. On the other side, also to prove that we can enter in the, let's say, the mainstream market in Europe in offshore areas and also in floating areas. And as just mentioned, that it's not an easy journey to get that. And we have worked quite hard since years. I think the challenge is that, I think the biggest challenge is, of course, actually is the trust. If the European developer or European customers is really trusting a kind of new OEM, which is actually not new in China, but in Europe, we are now starting up. We have not yet installed so many turbines. However, we have in China installed so many gigawatts, and still there's a gap of trust of the client to let's say a turbine OEM entering the European market. So in order to cover this gap, we need to gradually, first of course, we need to talk to them, we need to show our capabilities, show our technologies, and then second step, we're doing the projects, probably starting with a small or medium-sized project, like what we have done in Italy. It's a 30 megawatt nearshore bottom fixed project. And now we have secured this pre-commercial sized floating project, which we utilize our 80 megawatt turbine, 2 times 80 megawatt turbine in one floater, which is also very innovative design. And starting with that, I can also talk about regarding a little bit about our strategy in floating. So we are also the first one in China doing the first floating demo project, and we have running that project already since 1 year and very good results. And actually today in China, we are announcing our innovative twin concept, which is actually originally designed in Germany. And this is the Nazi Square. And we are actually in China, in parallel to this event, we have another announcement in China, in Shanghai, to announce that concept, which is also with 2 times 8 megawatt in one floating platform. Yeah. So put that together. So we need to prove our capabilities, our technologies, to, for instance, to our European client or globally. And also, another parallel is that we have also unique technologies, like we just mentioned, the twin turbine concept. Either in UK is also a twin concept, also what we are doing in China. It is the unique selling point from Mingyang that only we now are currently doing that in a full-scale commercial project in this concept, which we believe will also rapidly reduce the cost and LCOE for the floating wind to be able in short term to compete with the bottom fixed projects. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chen. Dr. Guo, how do you see the challenge. I mean, SANY, I remember back in 2008, even SANY sent Obama government into the court, and in the end, you win. So there's also something learned, I think, by doing, and the project running in Ethiopia for years. So what you have learned so far, and how do you see the new challenge, especially Sandy, Jenny already mentioned that we have the geopolitical concern as well, due to the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So how do you see the Chinese turbine OEM to copy the new challenge?
Yeah, I think what we learned that is really simple. First, I think you should first understand the market. You should not only the customer need, also understand the rules and regulations of the local market. And second, you should integrate yourself into this market with very devotedly. That's actively. So the third, I think, is still the customer-centered. You should, based on the customer need, to provide products and solutions from the top-level design. That's very simple.
Okay, thank you. So because we're running out of time, I will give only like 1 minute for each turbine OEM to answer my last question. I think it's also interesting for some of you sitting here join this session. You know, according to the media, you know, there are a little fear. They say, okay, Chinese turbine is so cheap. It's just like 1/3 of the price offered by the Western turbine OEM. If the Chinese enter the European market, and all the jobs will be gone because the market will be simply occupied or conquered by the Chinese turbine OEM. I think that's a fear. But I really want to know, based on what you learned and the company strategy, how do you see the competition now and the future? Do you believe that the Chinese market can take over the market share from turbine OEM very shortly? So 1 minute. So start with Dr. Chen.
Yes, I also read that, I hear that, and I think it's actually not true, or at least not completely true. So talking about the price difference, I also see the figures, but my opinion is that the figures is not, at least not 100% correct. Because in China, what we're talking about, the turbine price, is not including the installation, it's not including the transportation. Probably only have 2 years guarantee and so on. The scope is different. And if we bring the turbine from China to Europe, we also need to have a long distance of logistic. We need to install a turbine. We need to pre-assembly installing the turbine. We provide at least 5 years guarantee and maybe later on the power generation warranty of 98% something, which is not the case in China. So put that whole picture, all this difference in the picture, the price level difference is not that big, really. It's not that big. Of course, we still have some gap there. We're still more at the price level, more let's say competitively to the European OEM. And also, a lot of parts is that the turbine or the turbine generation business is not only the equipment. We need to run the turbine. We need to operate the turbine. So for services, so the services is most of them are localized. So we need to hire the local people. We need to hire local logistic. We need to have a local warehouse. So I think in the whole value chain, the services take probably the half of the whole value chain or 1/3 of the value chain. So put that all together. So I think it's not like this kind of breaking things up and breaking the market. I do not believe it.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah.
I have to stop here.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Because we're really running out of time. My colleagues already give me the signal twice. So I can conclude here based on what you say. So don't believe the media. Trust the turbine OEM. The gap is not that big, and you have to think about the different market condition in general. So do the real business, and the media can only give you some certain direction. So again, that's the comment, my takeaway from Dr. Chen. So Dr. Guo, how do you see the competition? I mean, SANY is already the #1 supplier for the crane, for turbine installation, harbor crane as well. So do you believe very soon you are going to become the leader for turbine OEM?
I believe in corporations.
All right.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity. As Dr. Chen has mentioned a lot about what the cost and for the turbines. So I emphasize on the corporations. we both have different kind of unique advantage at different market. In Chinese market, we have the advantage on manufacturing and also logistic and also the wind farm management. But as for the Europe, there has a lot of high standard inventions and also the great also code and that's of and also the new technologies here. So I think we can work together facing the challenge of our common challenges, such like energy crisis.
So you see the competition as a win-win situation instead of the truly price competition, right?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. So one last minute to you, Jenny, to close out. I mean, you've been working as a third-party observer for the market across the global. So how do you see the opportunity and challenge for Chinese? And how do you see their market share, let's see, in 5 years? 1 minute.
Okay. First of all, I have to say that it's a good sign. I'm quite happy to say that people are trying to collaborate, like Dr. Guo mentioned. The purpose of the business is not to compete. Instead, is to collaborate to achieve the win-win. In the past, we have seen many problems or challenges happened. First off, from the supplier part, that we would like to actually advise our Chinese OEMs that before you make this decision, that do a proper plan, a strategic plan, not only rush to the market, that we need some local knowledge about the market. We need to know the key players, and then we can talk about what is the best way to work together and achieve the win-win. But for all the players in the market, we probably have to change our concept and not actually to convert from competition to collaboration without any parts contribution. Actually, it is a hard, I shouldn't say hard, but it is very intensive competitive market, we have to say, because the barrier of the market is not as high as other sectors like the high-tech sector. That is why that we have to recognize what is our advantage and how we can leverage our credentials to achieve the best part rather than to compete between our shortcomings with other advantage. So we do believe collaboration is key.
Okay, thank you. And for your final conclusion, Jenny, I think I agree. I mean, we are living on a single, there's only one plan for us to live. And now we're in the middle of the crisis. And we are still not to the end of the tunnel in terms of COVID pandemic. China still has zero COVID-19 strategy. I think as a human being, of course, there is a competition, but it's really the time to think about how to working together, thinking about build a sustainable future. That's why GY are going to have the COP27 in Egypt this year. I think no matter who you are and where is your factory located, I think we need to think about one thing. We are living at the same boat and make sure that we have the win-win situation. And once again, thank you very much for the panelists and the speaker. Please give your applause. Thank you. Have a nice day.